we're going to start off with our last journey into Horseshoe Bay, which many of you know after episode 12 of season 4, we fell off a cliff with the show. But, we watched the series finale. We have thoughts. Personally, the boat was docked. That's all they had to do, and they accomplished it. And that's where I am on the series finale of Nancy Drew.
They did what they needed to do, and they got there. I mean, I know we all have thoughts and we'll all get into it, but the finale had a lot to do, both serving as a season finale and a series finale. I feel like one end of that was far more successful than the other, and I'll tell you what I mean later on. But as far as a finale does, it had a lot to do. It just about accomplished that. I can't believe we've reached the end of her Nancy journey. Yeah, mixed feelings about the finale. I'll stop rambling because we've a lot to get through. So yeah, that's my 2 cents so far.
Mixed feelings.
Yeah. I guess we could start with how the boat was docked. I think
quickly.
It was. And I guess that is what it was docked quickly, but which makes sense since it is a series finale. Typically, they are split in 30 to 40 minutes of the series finale is the wrap up of the main season storyline, and then you get what happens to everybody else in the last 20 or so minutes of it. But they did a lot in the short amount of time that they had. For this to be like a 43-minute episode, we got through. Goodness, whether or not Nancy and Tristan were soulmates, the last bit of Callie's nonsense, and the beginnings of Nancy and Ace within 20 minutes.
Like the ferret that went missing this season, the script was chunky. A lot going on, a lot on the burners.
Speaking of chunky, he is living his best life away from, apparently, the people who love him because he's
still free, independent ferret. Love that for him.
I don't know why we had that plot thread. It was Nancy Drew's first official investigation, and it was unsuccessful. We should have had a reference to Chunky. I'm sorry, but yeah, no. In my opinion, kind of too much going on in the finale. Where to even begin? Should we begin with the evil gas that made everybody remember things that wasn't specific to them, the mob? Yeah.
It was all over the place, right? Because you have a mob who's possessed by spirits.
Radicalized.
Yes, radicalized mob, has the spirits from centuries ago. But then you have some people who literally are just enacting their internal fears they've been suppressing by stealing things.
A silly, goofy time.
Yes. It's just, and then the way the smoke travels, I was like, okay, do we need coverage or not? Because Tristan was out here looking like a Western cowboy at one point. But then Red, Ryan, and Carson were just maskless out in the air. And then Carson and Red got hit with the gas from, I don't even know where it came from, something near the flower shop. And they had a funny, goofy time stealing things. I didn't understand. It was mass chaos in Horseshoe Bay. No questions were asked.
It was like, which flavor am I going to get? Or were you going to be the fun one, or were you going to be the dangerous one? I do want to say a little bit about that. They set up that cliffhanger so well. I think that was one of the only things I really enjoyed about last week's episode, even though we didn't really understand it. But the stakes never really felt that high, because even though the mob was going around the town shouting "burn the witch" and the people were looting and everything, it was all kind of played for laughs, because Carson, Ryan, and Red were sitting there having a full-scale conversation while all these people were violent around them, and it never really felt like something that needed to be taken seriously. And then, of course, Carson and Red got infected, and they were having the time of their lives, acting like kids, and and between the fact that the burn the witch mob, they never felt like real threats either. I don't know. It was cool visually. It was great. I love it when they can use the town, use the characters, because the longer these shows goes on, the more interior shots we tend to get. So I love it when you can see things like that. The stakes feel big, but I just thought that kind of never felt like it carried the gravity it needed to, especially because the whole season was all about the town finding out about its history of sins. Well, it technically found out, and all we got was a lot of cartoonish people. You know what I mean? I don't think that ever really lined up for me.
It looked like it was probably fun to act and to shoot,
Mhm.
though. Like it just looked like a good old nonsense time. But the gas went away. Part of me kind of likes how they needed to get rid of it, even though the supernatural lore was not luring. I checked out. I was like, you know what? You say that's what Tristan has to do. Sure, his soul can just supernova over the town and disrupt everything and get rid of this gas. Fine. Like, I accept
Yeah.
it.
Like, look, it's the last episode. I'm not trying to understand things.
Like,
Like, time is up. That's fine.
but
I'm with
that
you. I
that
believe
journey was
it.
interesting, but it was an interesting journey to go on. I felt like for Tristan, the completion of that arc for him works because he had been used for all of his life, and now he gets to be a hero. And he did the thing. And unfortunately, the thing also included one last go of trauma for Nancy because we couldn't get out of this series without her having to deal with yet more issues from the past. With her being, sorry, I don't remember the man's name, but whoever it was who created the Sin Eater uh, through
August
Nashua.
Pritchard.
Yes, because her and Tristan are not soulmates. They're tied by centuries long hatred, which, okay. Like,
That really weighed heavily on Nancy. And I feel like if I found out like a soul in my past life that I have no memory of or connection to did that, I would have been like, it's not, I didn't do it.
mm,
Not me. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And also on that note, I'm not saying reincarnation is real or reincarnation isn't real, but like usually when you go into an area like that, on a show, you need to kind of explain why it exists. Am I crazy or did the concept of reincarnation just come out of nowhere? Like we haven't talked about that in like explicit detail in Nancy before. And suddenly now Nancy Drew, who was a normal detective a year ago, again, a year ago, with not nothing crazy going on in Horseshoe Bay outside the typical murder mystery. And now suddenly everybody accepts reincarnation's real. No one asks any questions. And suddenly Nancy's weighed down by the fact that her soul was previously an evil person. You see why the finale was a lot to take in.
Yeah, it did, at least for me, come out of nowhere just in this episode, but it didn't feel out of place. It feels like it does have that conversation has a
Mm-hmm.
place in the show, and it seems like something they might have explored further in another season, which I wish they would have just done that sooner this season. Then it would have had a little bit more weight at the end. But yeah, like out of nowhere, not completely out of place, but just like we had to do a lot to keep up with the how Nancy felt about like losing her souls in the future. Like we had to do a lot to be like, okay, she feels this deeply about it now, whereas we probably would have had a few episodes of arc to build up to that feeling if they had told that story for a full season.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's
Right?
it felt like a weird inclusion for me only because like reincarnation, I believe, is tied to Tristan's plot because of the Soul Eater moving from one child to the next. Like, and so he was talking about his past lives. However, I think series long history for Nancy is actually about ancestry, not about reincarnation. Because even in last season, when Ace was carrying the piece of Temperance's daughter's soul, that wasn't about, I believe it wasn't about that being a past life for him, but rather a delineation, like it's from his family tree. It just
Mm-hmm.
comes to him. And ancestry has been a big part of Nancy Drew because of the Hudsons and how Nancy has been contending with their behavior in the town and her way of rectifying that. So then hitting her with oh, my past life was awful. I was like, why couldn't it just be her ancestor? It was awful. Y'all are connected through that being your ancestor, and she's now once again having to rectify something that happened centuries ago. But at the same time, I think it's really just reincarnation because they need to say that Nancy and Ace are one of a kind and they will never be reincarnated. This is the one life they get, and they're going to live it to the fullest by being with each other. That just seemed like another note they wanted to also find a way to break the curse reasonably at the tail end of the season.
It worked for what we got. Um, But that is interesting. Like it to bring up the fact Nancy grappling with part of her soul started the cycle of like horrors in Horseshoe Bay and her like that resting on her shoulders and taking that in. It's a lot to do in the last 20 minutes of the
Mhm.
Mhm.
series.
Yeah, it's not that they couldn't tell the story. I don't think it's that they're not capable of telling the story. I think they could have told it very well. Because again, that kind of lines up with the show's overall arc that Nancy constantly feels the weight of not just what she's done, but her ancestors, her families, all of that. So she's extra hard on herself. I just think it was a huge kind of bite to take when you've only 20 minutes left of a series, let alone a season. Um, and it was a lot of information to take in. The dialogue had to work overtime. So it felt like if you blinked for a second, you were like, wait, what's happening? Because you kind of missed it.
Carson wrapped up his entire storyline in a single line of
Yeah.
dialogue.
And
In
that
the
was something
first
we're
like
giving
5 minutes,
yeah.
I was like,
Yes.
let Scott breathe. Oh my goodness.
And they were the human elements. So yeah, imagine how crazy the supernatural stuff is to take on.
I know it is. Do feel bad that Carson's storyline is wrapped up in a sentence, and Jean is not that I needed to see Jean, but Jean is not on screen, so she doesn't even get to say that. He just goes, "Yeah, she called. She said that she wants the pregnancy,"
Yeah, he had to
and
explain where she is, where they're at emotionally, what like all of it, and like what I mean, great work as an actor to have to bite that off and sell it. But I was like, okay, we're done with that.
and then he still they gave him one last panic, which was him being like, "Will I be good as a father now, like in this stage of life?" I do. My favorite moment of the finale, though, is with Nancy and that tiny beanie for her
Yes,
sibling.
yes.
It's just the cutest. Like, yes. Like, and that ends our beanie watch by
Ah,
passing it
yeah.
along.
Yeah,
Next
Oh,
generation.
the next
yeah.
generation.
Next generation, just like her mom made a cashmere beanie for her. She either made or bought, I don't know, a beanie for her little
I don't think
sibling.
Nancy didn't have time to get the knitting needles out.
But it looks it's just like a mini replica of hers. It's just so cute. But what else? Let's talk about the wrap ups though. For since we talked about Carson's, starting with Nancy's, it is interesting that Nancy Drew ends with her not officially on an investigation. Not really. Like she's going to go on essentially an apology tour, and going to go from coast to coast to track down the places that had the sin eaters and for her to talk about it and help that person become free, just like Tristan is. And I guess she has a bit of a mystery because Ace does ask her, "Will you solve this mystery with me?" Which he means the whether or not the curse actually did break, because he said it's 50-50. Again, the lore is not loring, but it's the last 5 minutes of the show. So like you just accept it.
I assumed because after they kissed and then there was that close up on the flashlight and it didn't crack, I was like, okay, the curse is broken,
Mm.
Hmm,
I guess.
you're right.
That's what I got out of that. But and I also didn't realize that there were sin eaters like spread out in the
Mhm.
country. So that was interesting to
It's
me.
that is an interesting twist because we did say Horseshoe Bay has got a very like Sunnydale and Buffy, and that all the supernatural stuff was kind of drawn to it. People just accept that this stuff kind of happens, even if they don't ask questions about it. So it was interesting to see that Nancy Drew goes like stateside or global or international after this. That there's more mystery out there for to solve in the world. I mean, I do like that ending that I would have preferred maybe one of those like, oh, the adventures continue off screen. We did talk about that before, kind of endings, but it makes sense that Nancy has a purpose, that Nancy has a thing to do, and that Ace is going to join her on it as well with it as well. Um, yeah, it makes sense. I just I have a hard time believing that the Horseshoe Bay adventures only lasted 1 year, and then that's the end of that chapter of her life, and then she's moving on to something else.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna, bring it real for a minute. Um, I am conflicted with the wrap ups because well, one, it felt abrupt to me, like, oh, it's the series finale. I struggle with series finale tropes. Like this series finale, Nancy Drew, like it hit all of the emotional notes. It did everything to really like send these characters off and to like make you feel something. But I don't know how I feel about series finales making us believe that everything needs to change in order to end a show. Like everyone needs to go their separate ways, things need to be sold. Like I don't know, I struggle with those kinds of endings. And I like that's just a thought. I don't have any uh pitches for how they should have ended it, like because they did what they wanted to do and it worked. But I don't know, I just struggle with those endings where like they all just decide like I'm moving, I'm doing something else. And I'm like, is that because that's what's we think should happen in a series finale? I don't know. That's something that I
Yeah.
when I watched that scene, I was like, how realistic is it that they would all just decide to up and leave?
Not realistic.
Yeah, there's I feel like there's two types of series finales. There's either the ones that are like, right, everything has to end. You can't see these adventures anymore because these adventures won't continue. That's it. That's the end of it. And that seems to be what Nancy Drew went for. Or there's the other end, and the Flash is not a good example. So I'm so sorry for using it. But there is the Flash kind of example, which is, well, this is the end of the story we're telling, but they're still going to be there and they're still going to be carrying on with these adventures. We just won't see them anymore. I feel like Nancy could have gotten away with that one because, like we just said, this was just 1 year of their lives. She literally just set up Nancy Drew Investigations. Like, we know how slow time moves on this show. So, like, she put up Nancy Drew Investigations, that sign at the start of the season. And now at the end of the season, she's taken it down. Like, how many days have passed with this? Knowing this show, probably 2 weeks. But, like, I feel like Nancy Drew Investigations never really got off the ground. She could have kept that sign up. She could have kept working there. They could have kept the claw because, again, the whole emotional thing doesn't hit when you realize that they bought it and sold it within the same year.
Did they actually sell the claw? And did she sell Icarus Hall? I need like a real estate update. When did we like close on these sales?
When did they have time? We didn't even see the person that was trying to buy the claw. But this did feel very much speedboat, like you said, Reed, because it's unrealistic, which like it's a supernatural drama. A lot of things are unrealistically like, true. But when we consider that these are not high school kids who are graduating at the same time as each other, these are young adults who are in different spots of their lives. We moved rather quickly. Nancy just got the documentation submitted for her agency and opened a business, has the promotion stuff for it. Like Bess, who is sticking around in her job in the secret hidden historical society, that works because that makes sense. George was getting her associate's degree, now has gotten into a pre-law program and is moving immediately to Seattle. Have no idea what's going to go on with her sisters. We just found out via a piece of dialogue in the previous episode that supposedly Victoria is fine now.
Mm-hmm.
And is fully capable, I guess, of taking care of her children when she has not been capable of taking care of her children for the entirety of George's life. But fine, in a year she got it together, and she'll be completely fine raising these girls with no help whatsoever. Sure. And then Nick has had 3 businesses, closed every one of them, and is going to. Best wrap up for me, though, for him. He's going to Atlanta to work in an incubator as an engineer for Tom Swift, and Jade is going with him, and they're working as a PR person thanks to Zenzi. Like, lovely wrap up. Very excited about it.
I wish we had done the spinoff now.
Yeah.
Yes.
The crossover we wanted.
Yes, and that would have been amazing. And Ace is gonna get into medical school. And he's going to be a medical examiner. We did not delve into whatever it is that made him feel less than because we did not have time. But I'm happy for him that he is going to be working his way towards the job that he wants.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I'm happy everyone's going where they want and they're all like following their dreams. But I do agree, even though we knew the series finale was coming, it still feels like it came out of nowhere. Like that scene we just talked about, George sat down to announce her news and then went, "What about you, Nick?" Assuming that Nick would have news. That's such a series finale trope. And I have news. I have news. I have news. I have news.
Like how much time elapsed between when they like did all that and then decided to leave?
Not much.
And they didn't specify the time frame either. So like after the season finale element ended, suddenly we had jumped a little bit of time and everybody was in their series finale moods. It never specified how much time it wrapped up, how all this happened, like Sabrina just said, like George getting into pre-law school and all that. How did all of that happen when the season finale thing was playing out? George didn't know what her future held because that interview with that woman didn't go well. You know what I mean? I just feel like that the stakes were robbed because we spent too much time on the season finale element of it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I do, and I've seen the tweets, fans were excited about this finale. I think probably the most beautiful scene is the ending scene with the claw, which is very much for the actors in the crew and for those of us watching. I will say, though, it would have made, not that I wanted to see the claw burn, but it would have made more sense for Nick to be freaking out the way that he did if it had been the claw that was burning or a section of the claw burning than the
Right?
historical society.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
No, he's like, I failed the town. I was like, Nick, haven't you only walked into this place like 3 times?
I was like, why is he gonna run back in?
I don't know. Clearly it was burning. Like, sir, where are you going? Are we gonna die with the historical society?
It's not worth it, babe.
No, they're like holding him back, and like Tunji is acting his behind off. But I'm like, why did y'all ask him to do this? He
I
has
know, I was
no
like,
his,
what's the motivation? I was confused. It would have made more sense for Bess to have, I mean, she did kind of, but not that level.
no,
Was
she
that
didn't.
was that why he was the one who put forward the underground historical society idea, so he could suddenly feel bad about not being able to save the main one? I'm sure everyone felt bad about it, but like you said, Nick definitely took on the brunt of it. Maybe it's just because he's always the good person who likes to save people, protect people, look after people, and do the right thing. But
But that's like an Archie thing.
yeah, yeah, it doesn't
Nick
need.
was never really that as intense as Archie with his Superman complex.
Yeah,
No. And I thought he worked through it. I thought that was the whole point of going back to Florida because we needed to work through our trauma and we did it in 5 weeks and came back. And that was, I don't know. Historical society, it hadn't been his youth center, the safe space he had made. That was clearly a deep part of him in season 3. I would have also understood that because it was
Yeah.
for the kids, it was for the babies, it was their place. Him yelling and screaming and trying to get back inside, and if it was that building, would have understood that too. But the historical society of all places, not him. Needed to be best
I
if we were
mean,
going to do it.
yeah, probably for the best though. Like, to just end that era of Horseshoe Bay. Everyone will be safer.
it's a shame because losing the crutch of the historical society, I think, would have really revived the show and like turned things around. I would have liked to have seen what a season without that would look like because season 1 didn't have much of it to lean on, and now it's become such an important thing. And again, Per Best just took over it, and then it burned down. What does that say about her track record? Maybe we didn't need it to burn down, but at the end of the day, I would have liked to have seen what Nancy Drew would have looked like without it. They
I mean,
probably wouldn't have burned it if it wasn't a series finale, but still.
yeah, I mean, you bring up Bess. They really put her through. She was in court this season, hunted down by an angry mob. Her job and home burned down. Like,
I can see why she has that fear of abandonment then.
Oh, and yeah, and all her friends are leaving.
Yeah.
Every last one. She has Addie though. They made sure that Addie ran in the last few
We got
minutes
the cameo. We got the cameo.
to let us know what's going on there. I to the Vanson fans, sorry.
I was waiting for it, and I was like, guess we're not doing it. Okay.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they really were like, we're besties and we're done. Like,
Took
yeah,
me by surprise. So George
know.
technically ends up with that lawyer man.
Yeah,
Right?
Cameron,
Well,
who we don't really know. He's just the nice man from class.
happy for them.
Yeah, and then Jade came back too. We saw them before.
Hmm.
Well, they were supposed to help. Did Jade help? Now I'm thinking about it.
They paired them off with Ryan, didn't they?
Yeah, Jade corralled the dads, or the dad, or Ryan and who was Carson? Carson and Red were the ones that were going wild.
Oh, okay, and so they threw them in the claw, and then that was the end of Jade.
Yeah, it was Ryan
Yeah.
and Jade team up, right? Which was okay. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so mistake of the season was separate love interests. I'm just gonna put that out there. It was that it just shouldn't have done that. I love Tristan though. I really did. I would have enjoyed Jade if we got more of them. Cameron, we saw you 3 times, so I'm sorry. We could have
See,
definitely done
I
without
like
you.
had a theory a few weeks ago that something was gonna go awry with Cameron because um I don't know if it was last week or a couple weeks ago, but George and Cameron had a conversation at the bar at the Claw, and George put her bag down. It was like very like apparent that she had put her bag down. And then she left to go talk to somebody and left her bag at the bar. And I was like, is he gonna like sneak in there? Is he like shady, low key? Nothing ever came of it. I guess it was just me like looking for things.
Well, I
My
mean, maybe
soap
that was
opera brain was on, and I was like, he's gonna steal something and he's gonna throw a wrench in this whole thing. And nothing ever came of it.
well,
Which I
maybe that
guess
was
I'm glad.
yeah,
George
maybe that was
deserves
prior
some
to the
normalcy.
pivot. Maybe that was
Yeah.
prior to the pivot for the series finale. You never know what storylines were left on the cutting room floor after they changed direction.
That's true.
Don't tell us.
Oh, and then we had the lovely Alice, which she deserved better. We did a whole pod
Mhm.
about that, but she did deserve better. No, I found it interesting though. They love to parallel Nancy and Ace so much that I realized in the finale after Tristan was like, "I'm just going to sail and have some peace." It's like, oh, like Alice. I see what we did there. They both had boat related romances.
Huh.
And I was like, huh,
Yeah.
still didn't need to happen.
I was gonna say, was it necessary?
Yeah, I after seeing the series finale, just to like tie up the loose ends from last week, I still don't understand why that needed to happen for the finale. Like I think excluding it altogether wouldn't have taken anything away.
Mm-mm.
So I don't know. I think there could have been an alternate route to get to the end without including that quote sin or the erasure thereof. It was just, and I know I've said before, and I probably said this last week, that like I've always been a champion of like seeing how it ends, seeing how they land it to get the big picture. And I'm like, I took that back last week. So I was like, I don't think any big picture will help. And for me at least, seeing the finale, I still am just like, no, 412 didn't need to happen for no reason. Because it didn't contribute anything, in my opinion.
No. And looking at it now, I think the only thing that it was supposed to have added to was that Nancy felt even more guilt in finding out what her previous life still had, or what the soul had done in the past. She was like, oh, well, I'm a super bad person now, especially because of what we did, and we erased that sin and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I can see where the thread was going, but it still doesn't justify the storyline. There would have been other ways to do that. And literally taking one of our biggest problems with this finale is that it tackled too much. Taking that Alice storyline out of it, the guilt and all of it, and the more conflict for Nath would have left the finale with far more room to breathe, and the dialogue would not have been as heavy, and it would not have been as heavy on Nancy's shoulders. I don't think we needed to go there. And you're right, after seeing the finale, I think this whole season's worth story would have been better without that.
Yeah, because I mean, other than angst, what does it serve? Like, it really doesn't do anything.
I think is the takeaway supposed to be that it makes them stronger because Ace says what you did was out of love, which I don't agree with, because Ace got to there pretty quickly, and I still just don't. Maybe she did do it out of love in her own way, but I don't think that should be celebrated. It's not the right word, but I don't know. I just don't think that should be the way that we love people.
No, it shouldn't be. It makes me cuckoo bananas. It does,
does.
and like and I say this, and I know I'm always talking about Bellamy and Clark, and I get it, but like with the 100, my pair already had a high body count when things were happening. 400 people, 300 people, 1,000 people. She dropped a bomb on his sister. Like at that point, I was like, you know what? This show just likes mass casualties, and I just have to accept it. For this one, though, for Nancy Drew, it's like, but there's no room to breathe, though. Like she doesn't. They don't even really write Nancy as having an issue with what she did outside of how Ace feels about it. There's no
Yeah.
guilt really about erasing what happened to Alice. She doesn't even interact with that part of the story. That's all Ace is dealing.
And
She
it's wrapped
just was
up
horrible.
off
And
camera as well.
it is. And I mean, I did appreciate that, like, Ace didn't just drop Alice. He went to, I believe it was North Carolina,
Yeah.
to the funeral. At the beginning of the episode, he was talking about how he was sorting through his feelings and he didn't like what happened. And I did appreciate all that. But it also just feels like we're just like taking the broom and sweeping it up. Like we have to tie up
Mhm.
this loose end. We want to make sure he doesn't drop Alice, and then we're gonna drop her. By the time like we laid her to rest, she's at peace. By the way, to him telling her family that she's at peace now, sir. Like that line took me out just a little bit. I was like, let's not say that at the funeral.
No.
Let's not do that one. But I'm like, okay, so we could have, the angst really could have just been something else. Nancy could have been something else that had upset him, that was then had Nick going, is it really that bad though? Like, is anything really unforgivable? The line.
Mm.
Um
I twitched. I was like, Ace,
and
you said the word.
yes. And yes, it is unforgivable. I mean, even if he forgave her, forgiveness doesn't mean you have to get back with a person, by the way. I feel like even though Heartstopper didn't forgive anybody, which was fine. Like, even if you did choose to forgive someone, it doesn't mean you have to be with them. Just to put that out into the universe. You can just forgive and move on. But I don't know. I just felt like, I don't know what else it could have been. Maybe he could have felt betrayed that she'd moved on so fast, and that would have been enough. Maybe he could have doubted their love because of his insecurities. I mean, the storyline is right there. The man has never felt secure in his relationship with Nancy.
Mhm.
So it could have just been some Tristan angst if they wanted it to be.
Yeah, I'm questioning the whole thing. Like, did we need her to erase a sin? Could they have just done the whole like past lives soulmate thing earlier? I don't know. I'm not a writer. Well, I am, but not this kind. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say I'm not disappointed with the finale because I think what they did was really beautiful at the end to
Mm-hmm.
send the show and the characters and the cast and crew off was really beautiful. I'm just disappointed in the show and the choices it made at the end. And I think that's within anybody's right to be disappointed with the choice. And it's not just that I didn't get what I wanted or didn't do what I wanted it to. It's that it did something so out of pocket that I was like, it just left a really sour taste in my mouth. And that sucks going into a series finale of a show that we had so much fun watching. But again, like I said last week, nothing will take that away, those fun episodes that we enjoyed. But still, that lingering feeling, you remember, there's like the aftertaste in the back of your throat. You're like, it's hard to forget that. It's hard to let that go.
Mm-hmm. And there's no season to buffer it. Like, it's not
Yeah.
like that happened and then you watch the other season and you hate what happened, but we moved forward and we delved into it and it's still not great. But we're gonna
Mhm.
like move forward. Like that the show didn't, I'm not even gonna say get the opportunity to do that, because given again, like you had said, Reed, in the past episode, the building was burning. So we really could have written a different season. We just chose not to. And that was their right. It's also our right to critique it and not feel great about it if it didn't serve, to my perspective, to me, it didn't serve the entity of the series well.
Mhm.
I think season 4 had its moments, but for the most part, is written like a season where they thought they were going to get another one. Like, it's very, to me, it's experimental. They were playing with a lot of things. They were trying new lore. They were trying new dynamics, and it just did not work with what was going on with the CW.
In that sense, it did really feel like a final season because the final season is where you should, like Dynasty, like they did that whole horror sequence. They did so many things in its final season that were just like, well, if we're going down, we're going to go out swinging and we're going to do whatever we want. And I'm like, Nancy was like flirting with that. And then after those 3 standalones, I'm always going to harp on it. The brakes were just slammed on and we got whiplash.
Yes.
And it just feels like the storylines they decided to tackle didn't add anything. They took away from it. The NES is worse off. for that storyline. Nancy Drew is worse off for that storyline. And not that you could ever justify doing a storyline like that on. It would be different if they had time to justify it or land the plane or anything like that. But not only was there no doing that, they didn't have the time to do it. So we're still here we are a week later thinking, why? I think that was the underpinning question we asked constantly last week. Why? Why was the need for that to happen? And now
It
here
still
we
has not
are.
been addressed, if I'm going to be
Exactly. Yeah.
perfectly honest.
Yeah. Here we
And not
are.
that it can be because of the strike, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. But like here we are with the where we're supposed to have the answers. And I think we're just left with more questions. Um, yeah, that's not what a finale was supposed to do, in my opinion.
No, but to dock our own boat,
Hmm.
just to uplift Nancy Drew as a show, as far as the very tail end of the episode, it was beautiful seeing all of them together at the claw with the memento counter that they had going on. I thought that was very sweet. And the sketching, the carving under the table, which they can't say that's Ace Hardy, but that's Ace Hardy.
Yeah.
And then I think the most gorgeous moment, in my opinion, is Kennedy in the doorway saying goodbye, and then it closes, and they got me there. I was like, "Ooh, little heart flutter.
Yeah.
I'm gonna miss
Yeah,
you."
got a little choked up, and she was saying like she has four soulmates. I'm like, yeah, girl.
You
I've been
do.
saying that since day one.
And that's when this show's at its strongest, I feel, when it's just the cast where they can just act. And there were not a lot of lines of dialogue there. It was just such a beautiful, heartfelt scene where they just acted their hearts out, made us feel everything, reminded us why we love the show. And as far as final scenes go, I don't think the show could have ended any better than that. And I'm glad, even though we had a lot to get through in that finale, we got to that point at the end of it because I really did enjoy the final scene.
And I really love that last moment between Nancy and George where she knows for George being the last one out of the cloud will hit her hardest. And she said, I got it. And that's like quintessential Nancy, right? She'll do the hard things for her friends, for the people she
Mm-hmm.
loves.
Yes.
And that was like one last hard thing that she did. She's the last one to turn the light off.
Oh, beautiful. Hearts all
Yeah.
around. It was just gorgeous. And like when that moment happens, I was thinking about like our journey with Nancy Drew and how wonderful it has been. Like our Drew crew is the spiral. So like
Yes.
so being on this journey with you guys has been like the loveliest. Like we went into this knowing some things, of course, but like really, really enjoying the majority of it, just trucking along and like screaming and hollering and really getting to watch the show together. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I love it
It
so
was really
much.
fun. Like it's fun to analyze. It's our first full series we got to analyze.
Mm.
Because when we started this, we're in the middle of every other CW show. This is the first one that we watched to beginning to end, besides the one and dones, Winchester's and Windy. But like, yeah, it's fun to analyze a show and also to enjoy it is like it's never a given that you're going to enjoy a show for as long as we did. But to also get to pick it apart and like celebrate it, and we get Kennedy out of this whole thing. It's all very special.
It is. And I feel like I was sitting thinking about the day we watched the pilot there recently, and it just feels like such a full circle moment. It might be hard to buy that all of Nancy Drew took place in a year, but we made sure it took place in a year because we watched it over a year. It's just.
When did we start, by the way?
It was last summer, wasn't it? I think
it?
July, was it? I think so.
Oh, I'll have to look at the timestamps, the dates.
Yeah, I think it was. But yeah, like it's been such a wonderful journey. The show the first season was awesome. You guys said you knew bits about it. I knew nothing about the show other than what the concept of what Nancy Drew was. It was amazing to be able to go into it and just like fall in love with these versions of the characters because they are now the quintessential versions of them for me. And it just like I think it's one of my favorite things we've done together so far because we've been through an awful lot since we started this podcast. I have wrinkles under my eyes because of what the CW put us through.
We were the CW historians we didn't know we were going to be.
Right.
Right.
But this is something good. This is something joyous. And it was nice to be able to experience it together. I'll never think of Nancy Drew without thinking about you two because we always texted and messaged each other afterwards. It's been an awesome journey together. I think that's the worst part about it being over because I'll miss all of the experiences we've had with it. But we have these characters, we have these moments in our hearts that we can revisit it someday and maybe appreciate seasons 3 and 4 in a new light when we do.
But the good thing about consciousness is that you can just pretend some things don't exist, and we can snip off some things that we, trim the edges off.
For sure. The 100.
That were in our,
the 100 ends season 6 finale after Bellamy and Clark hug, and it's golden hour. That's it for me. I don't know what else happened later. I mean, I do, but we don't.
None of your business.
Right?
Me with the Flash after season 6.
Me with Montreal after season 6. I was in that car with Peyton and Lucas. I don't know what else to say.
The end. Oh, I do love our Nancy journey. And we do have another journey, but y'all will find that out at another time. But
it's not Nancy related, so don't get any ideas, anybody.
No. Oh, also, y'all, I know you're on a movie campaign, but let's just let the series end completely first. Let's just let the boat is docked, but y'all can wait on a movie because I saw that campaign already going, and it was kind of funny. But they're like, you know what? This sets up a plot line where we can just come back in a few years and everybody's back in Horseshoe Bay.
I love the inspo, love the momentum, but it takes a little bit of time to get the gang back together. It takes a minute and maybe a Kickstarter campaign.
Also selfishly, I want to see Kennedy on The Good Lawyer. So
she's got Emmys to win, people. Priorities first.
Yes. If we can come back in like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, we got time. We got time.